Commander Livia Chun's boots clicked softly against the gleaming metal floor as she strode down the central corridor of the Astra Voyager. Her reflection tall, resolute, eyes bright with determination glided past the reinforced bulkhead. Windows. Each pane revealed Eden-like vistas of Viridia's surface, rolling violet forests swaying beneath swirling emerald skies, bioluminescent vines coiling around crystalline fungi that pulsed like living lanterns. She paused before the quarantine control room sealed door. Through the viewport, Lieutenant Raj Patel was already immersed in readings. "Commander," he greeted in a low voice, eyes flicking up. He gestured to a hollow display showing a cascade of biohazard protocols. Council Directive 47B is in full effect. No interspecies food exchange for 120 hours. Even a speck of native starch could introduce Sandhian spores lethal to Earth-grown microbiomes. Livia nodded, her lips tightening. Understood. She consulted the mission log. Day 0, Hour 02. Initiate lockdown. Day 5, Hour 0. Lift quarantine. 5 days to subsist on synthetic rations while the Anthys, our anxious hosts, face their own deprivations. Through comes the ship's captain. Admiral Sorensen spoke. "Chun, how are we handling supplies?" His tone was measured but urgent. "We've allocated standard rations. Combined, your team's redundancy reserves will last precisely 124 hours. Engineering reports the hydroponics bay yields negligible output until day 7. A soft beep confirmed Livia's acknowledgement. She exited the control room and crossed into the observation deck, where the Anthys delegation hovered in silent formation. Their slender, iridescent bodies, nearly 2 meters tall, were draped in filmy robes of silvery blue. Tendrils extended from their shoulders and wrists, gently undulating as if attuned to some hidden rhythm. At their forefront stood Priestess Thalira, her crown of filamentous feathers glimmering like a halo. Thalira's large, opaline eyes met Livia's through the barrier. In a series of melodic pulses, she communicated. "Hunger grows. Our granaries empty. We beseech your mercy." The plaintive urgency in those harmonics resonated deep within Livia's chest. Yet she raised a gloved hand in respectful refusal. Words translated by her helmet's AI. "We must uphold the directive for mutual safety. 5 days no more, no less." Behind Livia, the mesh of corridors funneled back to the ship's lower decks, where the crew prepared for the ordeal. Supply officers loaded synthetic packs, compact cubes, engineered for balanced nutrition, into individual lockers. The thrum of atmosphere regulators was the only sound beneath the hum of life support systems. In the adjacent biolab, Raj calibrated the foraging scanner. Its pronged probes would identify flora safe for human consumption, non-native, high-starch weeds that had spread across the northern plains of Viridia. A small team's mission: gather, analyze, and process during the quarantine window. Livia's mind raced through contingencies. What if the scanner missed a hidden toxin? What if the Anthys suffered irreparable harm before day 5? A soft chirp from her wrist console interrupted her thoughts. A status update. Anthys health metrics, pulse, respiration, bioluminescence already dipping. Time was leaking away faster than she'd feared. Steeling herself, Livia squared her shoulders and addressed Raj. "Suit up. We leave at Alpha 20. No mistakes." The lieutenant's determined nod echoed her own resolve. In 5 days, they would prove humanity's resolve to respect alien life, even at their own expense. As the Astra Voyager's airlock sealed behind them, Livia took one last look at the Anthys silhouettes, motionless against the backdrop of floating spores. The quarantine directive wasn't just policy. It was a testament to the fragile trust between two worlds. And now, alone on Viridia's mossy plain, they would test the limits of survival and compassion in equal measure. Dawn's twin suns had barely crested the jagged horizon when Commander Chun and Lieutenant Patel emerged from the Astra Voyager's airlock. A thin mist clung to Viridia's moss-carpeted plains, glowing faint green in the early light. Each breath of filtered air tasted like fresh mint and ozone, a promise of life amid quarantine's bleak calculus. Raj tapped his wrist console and conjured a holomap of the northern plains. Scanners picked up several invasive strains of Palaka virens, Mora unicurs, and a handful of lesser-known bioluminescent sprouts. All are non-native, fast-proliferating. We can harvest without upsetting the local ecosystem. He swept the map markers into neat clusters. Our best bet is the Palaka Grove 10 clicks northeast. High starch content, minimal toxins. Olivia swiveled her headlamp toward the violet forest edge. Distance looks clear, but remember the spores. Drifting here can foul even our sealed suits if we're not vigilant. Keep the suit's external filters online and channel all samples through the biolock immediately. They advanced in silence, each footstep pressing into spongy moss that rebounded with a soft plip. Overhead, ghostly vines dangled from towering fungi, their crystalline caps refracting sunlight into prismatic ruins. A distant hum hinted at native insectoid life, perhaps the very creatures that pollinated Viridia's flora. Halfway to the grove, Raj's scanner emitted a cautious chirp. Hold up elevated sapocidity here, Mora unicurs. Its leaves secrete an alkaloid that can dissolve standard polymer fibers in minutes. He leveled a daunted hand. We'll need to bypass these patches entirely. Suits won't withstand prolonged exposure. Livia marked the hazard on her HUD. Reroute around. We can't risk a breach. They pivoted east, forging a new path through thicker underbrush. Pulsing mushrooms skirted the trail, their soft glow illuminating the way like distant lanterns. At last, the grove of Palaka virens came into view, a riot of broad jade leaves flickering with emerald bioluminescence. Raj knelt beside a cluster, gently parting the largest leaf to expose tender veins. Perfect, he breathed. High starch, trace lipids. Exactly what we need to augment our synth rations. He activated the auto-pruner, its micro-serrated blades slicing through stems with surgical precision. As each leaf dropped into the containment tray, Livia performed a quick surface scan. Sap checked no foreign proteins, prepped the dehydrator pod. She keyed a command into her console. A portable dehydration unit hummed to life, beginning to vacuum dry and compact the leaves into nutrient bricks. While the equipment sorted and processed, Livia swept the perimeter for any signs of native life. In the violet obscurity just beyond the grove's fringe, she caught flickers of movement, tall, slender forms sketching across the shadows. The anthes had come drawn by the human presence, and perhaps by the faint aroma of harvested greens. She gestured to Raj, who sealed the final pod. We leave nothing behind. Pack out all equipment, wipe the area. In unison, they retraced. Their steps, scrubbing soil samples from boots and disabling the dehydrator's thermal traces. Back aboard the Astra Voyager, the biolab awaited. Under sterilized lights, the first batch of Palaka cakes emerged dense, puckered discs streaked with green veins. Raj held one up for inspection. Taste test? He offered wryly. Livia glanced toward the observation deck, where Priestess Thalira and her people hovered in silent agony. Later, she said softly. First, the crew must be fed. Then, we plan our next run. As the synthetic rations were supplemented with fresh Palaka cakes, morale ticked upward among the crew. Yet through every smile and bite, Livia carried the weight of the Anthe's silent plea, reminder that while humans could survive on weeds, their hosts were starving under quarantine's rigid shield. The hunt had succeeded, but the true test of compassion lay still 5 days ahead. Day 3 broke under an acid green dawn and the Astra Voyager's mess hall felt more like a prison than ever. Crew members milled about the long cafeteria table, eyes sunken, voices hushed but tense. Engineer Marisol sighed as she unwrapped her third synthetic ration bar, its flavor nothing more than a faint chemical tang. "By tomorrow, I swear I'll eat my helmet," she muttered, half joking and half desperate. Livia watched from the hatchway, heart tightening. She reviewed the life signs feed on her wrist console, heart rates edging upward, cortisol indicators spiking. The hydroponics bay remained barren, the algae vats still cycling through their initial growth phase. Only the dehydrated palaka cakes stood between the crew and collapse, and even they were dwindling fast. Through the reinforced windows, Priestess Thalira and her Anthes kin drifted like pale ghosts along the quarantine barrier. Their bioluminescent feathers had dulled to a weak silvery glow. Tendrils that once arched proudly from their shoulders now drooped toward the ground, each wave of hunger echoing a silent cry. Livia winced at Thalira's pleading harmonic pulses. "Feed us. We fade." But the edict was absolute. No biological exchange until day 5. In the biolab, Raj tapped data into the central console, scanning the nutrient density of the final batch of palaka cakes. "We've got enough starch and protein to keep the crew functional until dawn on day 4, he reported gravely. "After that, we're trading on pure willpower." He scrolled through yesterday's sampling logs. If only the scanner could find another fast-growing strain. A low murmur rippled through the mess hall as Olivia entered to address the crew. "I know you're all feeling it," she began, voice steady but compassionate. "Morale is our first casualty. We stay the course 5 days. No shortcuts. Mission success depends on it. Our safety protocols, our rations, and our respect for the Anthes ecosystem are non-negotiable." She met each gaze in the room, sealing her resolve with theirs. "We hold." Back at the barrier, Thalira pressed her forehead to the reinforced glass, sending a tremor of sorrow through Livia's suit. The Anthes leader extended a weak tendril, an invitation, a lament, a shared hunger. Livia closed her eyes, struggling to reconcile duty with empathy. Later that afternoon, Raj made a startling discovery. "Commander, look at this." He amplified a spectral analysis of the dehydrated cakes. "Trace lipids just enough to slow starvation if we could deliver them safely." His finger hovered over the datapad. "We could, with proper sterilization, mass produce extra cakes. Enough for the Anthes to maintain baseline health." Livia stared at the flickering hologram, a slim hope born from scientific rigor. To release any palaka before day 5 risked violating the quarantine directive, but to let the Anthes star seemed equally unforgivable. Her jaw clenched. The great starvation had reached its apex. Stay the rigid course or bend protocol in the name of compassion? As the twin suns sank behind violet treetops, the Astra Voyager hummed with tense anticipation. Tomorrow, they would decide whether hope lay in strict obedience or in daring to share the galactic weaves that had saved them. The fifth dawn broke in molten gold across Viridia's twin suns, casting long, trembling shadows over the quarantine barrier. Commander Chun stood on the deck of the Astra Voyager, her breath held in silent anticipation. Today, the 5-day lockdown would lift, and with it, the choice between rigid protocol and heartfelt kinship would finally be made. In the biolab, Lieutenant Patel oversaw the final dehydration cycle. Hundreds of palaka cakes, each compressed into compact, biosafe pods, lined the sterilized trays. "All systems green," he confirmed, eyes bright with relief. "Sterilization complete. We're clear to transport." He loaded the sealed containers onto the transfer platform, every clink of metal echoing like a promise. Below, the Anthes had assembled at the barrier's edge. Priestess Thalira's bioluminescence flickered with cautious hope, her tendrils quivering in the morning breeze. Around her, the community hovered in concentric arcs, their forms pale but unbroken, a testament to their resilience. Though weakened, their eyes shone with trust. A fragile bridge extended between worlds. At precisely 7:59 Viridian Standard Time, the countdown began. On the Astra Voyager's comm channel, Livia's voice rang clear. 5, 4. The crew gathered behind her, each in radiated suits now scrubbed of quarantine protocols. 3, 2. Through her helmet's HUD, Livia saw the vault doors unlock. A gentle hiss announced the sealing motors releasing for the final. Time, 1. With a hiss, the sealed pod slid into the shared chamber. Livia tapped her wrist console. The inner airlock cycled open. A rush of filtered dawn air swept through as the barrier shimmered and then dissolved, an invisible wall, falling away in an instant. Livia watched breathlessly as the first Palaka pod drifted toward the Anthes. Thalira reached out, her slender tendrils cradling the pod like a newborn. She opened it, revealing a single dense cake flecked with emerald veins. With careful precision, she broke it into pieces and offered them to her people. As each Anthes consumed their portion, their feeble glow reignited into full luminescence. Their tendrils lifted, and harmonic tones swelled in a chorus of renewed life. Livia felt tears pool inside her helmet as she stepped across the former quarantine line, the soft moss yielding under her boots. Raj joined her, carrying additional pods. Together, they knelt among the Anthes, sharing the sustenance that had preserved them. No longer alien strangers, they were fellow survivors bound by necessity and compassion. As the colony feasted beneath the twin suns, Livia and Thalira exchanged a quiet nod of mutual respect. The ordeal had tested them both. Commander Chun's unwavering adherence to duty, and Priestess Thalira's steadfast faith in humanity. Now, on this day beyond the wall, a new chapter began, one where life, in all its forms, was honored equally under the vast canopy of the galaxy.